Okay, so that brings us to what's next after UFC 291, and I'm just going to talk about the co-main and the main. What's next for Alex Pereira? What's next for Jan, DP, and JG? I think for obviously for Jan, he's over 40, 41 years old. He might have to think about what he wants to do with his career. Does he want to be a gatekeeper type? Does he want to? I mean, he's even that's not the most stacked division, so it's like heavyweight. You're only a few fights away, maybe from contention again. But like that was the best matchup for Pereira to win. That was absolutely one of the worst matchups for Pereira was Jan and Ankalaev. Those are the two guys who were like the scary guys for him because of the grappling and the question mark or, the hole that everyone thought that Pereira really had with grappling. And I think it'd be tested more against Ankalaev, obviously a little better wrestler than Jan. Jan had a better submission game probably, but I mean, so yeah, Pereira definitely passed that test. And, I don't know what's next for Jan. That's up to him if he wants to keep fighting and what he's going to do. He feels like he was robbed, so maybe that will give him enough where I want to fight my way back to this, But for Pereira, I mean, they're talking Yuri and Pereira at the end of the year. That makes sense. That's absolute banger of a fight, amazing matchup. You're going to have like striking versus striking. Yuri's not going to try and take down Alex Pereira. I mean, Pereira is definitely a more seasoned or sharpened type of a striker. And you got Yuri, who's more unorthodox, power in both hands, unpredictable. And that's going to make it a scary fight for Pereira fans. So Pereira definitely could win it if it's just a tactical battle and he could stay out of, he could leg kick him and catch him. Yuri, he's another hands down type guy, just throw some weird angles and crazy strikes, super explosive. So, I mean, that's definitely dangerous. He can knock out anybody. Yuri's got that kind of power. So, but at the same time, he could be hit as well. And Pereira's got probably the most devastating left hook in sports. So, I mean, at least in MMA and kickboxing. So, I mean, that's been proven. So, I mean, that fight, that's fireworks right there. Can't wait for that one. That's definitely has to happen. And you got Jamal Hill recovering, waiting because he relinquished his bout after his Achilles injury. He's going to be out for probably like at least a year. He can get the winner of that one. That's those three right there. That three, they can't have not both of those matchups are crazy. Either Yuri Hill, Pereira Hill, vice versa. What I mean? So those fights are going to be great. That division, this gave a lot of life to the division because now strikers are right there in the mix, and it's not just about wrestlers, and there's not a lot of wrestlers in that division. It's not a wrestling heavy division, so that is a division where Pereira can become a champ. I was saying earlier, double champ, first glory, middleweight and light heavyweight champ. If he does the same thing in UFC, there's an argument there, greatest combat fighter of all time, double champ. Sorry, Triple C, you the man. You got your gold medal, double champ, in the UFC, but you got 4-time champ. That's double champ. I mean, that sounds a little better. Triple C sounds dope, but double champ. That's like, wow. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so, and he might not be done there. Obviously he wants to rematch against Izzy, which I don't even, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, why kill yourself to make 185 if you're Pereira? You beat Izzy 3 times. Like, yeah, you're 1-1 in the UFC. You beat him, you're 3-1 overall. I would think, if anything, he's so huge, why not go up to heavyweight after John Jones retires, after John Jones and Stipe, obviously, because I don't think he has anything for John Jones. John Jones, fight IQ, wrestling, reach, just everything, just dogging him as well. I think he would. That's a horrible matchup. That may be like a Sergey because that guy's so freaking huge. But he's closer to heavyweight, I think, than he is to middleweight. He was weighing over 230 fight night on this one. So I would say, imagine that. We got a double champ or double Pride Glory champ and a triple UFC champ, which hasn't been done yet. Middleweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight. That I think Pereira, that's more doable. He could go back down and beat Izzy. I'm not saying he couldn't. He's done it. He's done it already. But I'm saying I think it'd be even more meaningful to legacy, and just then you can't argue that he's the best combat sports of all time. If he does in fact beat Yuri, and then if he moved up and got the heavyweight belt, which there's not a lot of crazy wrestlers in heavyweight. Curtis Blades, John Jones, obviously, but it's not going to be he'll be a lot faster than those guys, and definitely more tactical and more seasoned as a striker. So I mean that's I think more doable. I think that would be I mean no one's ever probably going to do that again if he or have the opportunity to. So hopefully he can hopefully that is a goal. I mean I don't know. It's up to at the end of the day it's up to Alex and his team what he wants to do, what his goals are in his fighting career. He might just win the belt and be like, I'm done, I don't want to do this anymore. Or he might want that get back with Izzy. So who knows? Or at 185 or 205, who knows, because Izzy, he's already pretty much beat everybody other than Duplessis, at middleweight and Strickland. But, they're talking about that fight maybe happening against Strickland. So we'll see if that does happen or not. People are coming out and saying the UFC doesn't want that fight. So who knows? I mean, they might want to wait for Duplessis. And Izzy has talked about moving up to 205. So maybe the rematch, if it does happen, would be at 205. But first things first, he'd have to get past Yuri, obviously, which is a tough test, dangerous test. So, but exciting times for 205. It put a lot of life into a kind of a not a stacked division, but yeah, great times for that. And then the main event, the main fighters, and you got DP. What's next for him? I think he could go and do the Beneil fight at this point. They're both coming off a loss. They're both right there. I don't think he's that far away from. He's another. That whole division and that whole division, the whole lightweights, the top 5, 6. They're only like a win or 2, 3 tops away from being right there at the belt again, because everyone's so good right there, and that division is stacked as it is. They've all fought each other, so it's like you could get. It's easy to get back in the mix. Beneil was about to be in the mix, so Poirier and Beneil, there was talks of that fight before this fight. That could happen. I favor Poirier in that fight. I mean, that could be a good bounce back fight. He might maybe want to fight Kobe, but I think Kobe's fighting Edwards now. They're talking Madison Square Garden, so they have beef there. If Poirier does want to move up to 170 or a catch weight or something, I mean, who knows? Poirier does have a name now, and everybody knows it's always a great fight. So he could, he kind of call his shot somewhat too, So I mean, he's definitely not going to get the next title shot or the next, but he's still. Like I said, everybody right there is a couple wins away from being right there again. And so for Gaethje, I think it's a no-brainer. He's going to get the winner of Islam and Charles and DeBronx. And that either one of those fights will be great. I mean, that's a whole different freaking video talking about Charles and Islam. But I wouldn't mind seeing Gaethje against Islam, because Islam will strike with him. He's not going to go out there and run at him like Khabib did and gas him out in the first round. He will stay it will stay on the center of the cage. They will fight somewhat, and Islam is he's a pretty damn good striker himself, so you can't make too many mistakes against that guy. And if he does get on top, then yeah. But I always want to see that Dagestani against a high level wrestler or fighter. Although Gaethje's a All-American, from Missouri, he didn't, or was it Missouri? No, Arizona. He went to Arizona. I know that. He's from Arizona. But yeah, I can't remember exactly now. Damn, brain fart. But anyway, yeah, All-American wrestler. That'd be interesting if he just comes out and trains, wrestling for that camp and does all that, work on his jiu-jitsu, tying up his jiu-jitsu defense. That could be a banger. I mean, either way, that's a banger. Like I said, Gaethje's never in a non-banger fight. It's always must see. You never miss his fights. So I mean, I think that's what's next with Gaethje. It has to be. There's what else is there? If DuBronx wins, and you can have that rematch for the belt, which was, I wouldn't say it was a close fight. Obviously, he rocked Charles a couple times, dropped him. His game plan got thrown out the window 10 seconds in when Oliveira cracked him, and hurt him. So they both have said that that's the hardest they ever been hit, from each other. So I mean that fight would be a banger. But Islam too, we'll see. I mean, we got to get past that other fight first. But that's just great. Now Gaethje will have that belt, and maybe someday they will run it back. Gaethje and Poirier. I mean, Gaethje, they're cool. What I like about it too, they're both warriors. There's no shit talk. They're cool backstage after the fight, and Gaethje in the post fight was saying like, "I told Dustin, hey, I'm good. We're never fighting you again. I don't mind it. I'm good with it. 1-1, whatever. And he also said that if he wouldn't fight him again unless if Poirier does want that fight and calls for it, then of course he'll give it to him because Poirier gave him the rematch and the opportunity. So I mean, which is great, it's commendable. But other than that, he doesn't really desire, doesn't want to fight him. So that's it. Yeah, what's next? Those guys, a lot of, Kevin Holland, we can even start with that. What's next for him? Who knows? Because he's willing to take so many fights. He's talking about going back up to 185. So if he does that, which it was just the big wrestlers that gave him problems at 185. So, I mean, we can see he's still going to he still did well there. He could do both, go back and forth in those divisions, depending on the circumstance, really. So as far as that, Chiesa, who knows? He might hang it up and just sit behind the booth and concentrate on his podcast with Felder. I mean, either way, he's successful. He's doing his thing. I mean, he's a good analyst, got a good brain for IQ and vocabulary for that stuff and analysis. So I mean, that might be why, unless he wants to fight, who knows? I mean, you can't tell when you want to hang him up or not, but he has a lot more things going for him than just fighting. So I mean, other than competitive, I could see him doing jiu-jitsu matches though, or wrestling and stuff like that, grappling matches. So I mean, that might be something he could consider as well. And Bobby Green, I mean, he takes pretty much whatever fight. I wish he would call out more people. He's not disrespectful that way. Some guys aren't. They're just not going to talk crap to sell a fight, or whatever, talk crap about other fighters. So it's like kind of like, but he's just at the mercy of whatever the company wants to do. But he's getting paid. He got up another bonus, put on a great show, great performance. So we'll see what happens with him. Like, I'm trying to think of a matchup that would be good for him. I don't know. There's so many good fights there. Maybe in a Hooker or somebody's Hooker. Yeah, 55. Yeah, maybe a Dan Hooker or somebody like that would be a good one. It would be a banger of a fight. Tony, I mean, that's going to be on him if he wants. He did look good early. He don't look the same. Obviously, he looks a little older, but he's lost 6 straight. But that's on him. What does he want to do? He's another guy who could probably go and just do jiu-jitsu tournaments and stuff like that as well. But if he wants to keep fighting, then you got to let him do it, I guess. I mean, I hate seeing the guy get damaged, because he is a favorite, one of the faves. So, I mean, we'll see what happens with that. Ultimately that's up to him and his family, his team, what he wants to do. There's no quitting that guy for sure. He showed that. He got put to sleep. He could have tapped. He didn't. He could have gave up a few times. Refused to lose type mentality. Very strong mindset. And this guy's Derek Lewis is a free agent, so who knows what's going to happen with him. He's at the end of his contract. He could go try to do like a Ngannou thing, rematch or something in another organization, or go into something else, boxing or whatever he wants to do. Or I think the UFC is happy. I always like Lewis. He always puts on a show. He's a fan favorite. I'll say he always puts on a show, but, he had a couple lackluster performances, but I think he has some injuries going on, some back issues, some weight issues, and now he's 6-packed up and, looking great, always been athletic. So, I mean, always, like I said, it's a very sellable fighter, does what, always brings it on the mic. So, I mean, sky's the limit for him, too. What does he want to do? The ball's in his court and the UFC, obviously, but how hard are they going to fight to keep him, So we got like we already talked about the other two. So, yeah, that's it. What's next? Some great fights. Let's go.